Hi and welcome. I want to go over a situation that I think will be helpful for newer Mahjong players to observe. To preface, I've been playing Mahjong for a few months, and in Mahjong Soul I'm ranked Expert 2 right now, and I'm still getting kind of familiar with the tile shapes. I'll be going over this specific play because it answers an important question. At what point do you call Richie, and when should you refuse it? When I see this question answered on forums and on Reddit, the answer sometimes is oversimplified to something like, you should always call Richie early because you have a statistical advantage. And that brings us to this hand. You can already see that my sequences are pretty much decided for me. I have a pair in the 1 Mons. The game just finished my 6-7 Mon sequence with the red 5 Mon. I have a finished 1-2-3 Soul sequence, and I'm now waiting on either the 5 Soul or the 3 or 6 pin for Tenpai. It is important to note here that if we draw the 5 Soul first, then we are guaranteed a Pinfu weight, and that's valid Yaku, so we don't have to call Richie if we don't want to. Now looking at the rest of the table, we're in South 4, so it's the very last round. The player to my left has a slight lead over me, actually just a little bit under 1,000 points. And the players across from me and to the right of me are about a hair's breadth away from each other in points. Both of these facts are pretty important to keep in mind. So here, I drop the green dragon. Since my shapes are already decided, I don't need to rely on honor tiles this hand. Everyone else's discards are pretty standard, and then I come across this 3 pin. And now I have to consider the option to call Richie. Because this weight is on a single tile, with the 4-6 soul weight, Pinfu is no longer applicable, so if I want the chance to roll this tile from another player, I'm going to have to call Richie. Taking a step back and looking at the discard tiles from the other players, though there's not a lot to glean, we can at least get the information that none of them have made any aggressive tile drops as of yet. They have exclusively purged their hands of honors and terminal tiles, and that's the same with me. And if I were to drop the West Wind here and call Richie, they would have practically no idea which tiles would be safe against me. It's clearly an overwhelming advantage in that respect. However, as you can see, I choose not to call Richie here. We still have over 60 tiles left, so I use this opportunity to kind of feel things out. I may end up calling Richie, but I feel like I don't have to right now. In the first place, my final weight would be a 5 soul tile. Looking at it generally, 5 soul is a very desirable tile, not just for me but for everybody. It's right in the middle of the suit, so it has high compatibility and potential to work in a lot of hands. And you can pair it with a red 5 if you're lucky, and so on. The main wrinkle here is that at this point in the game, you'll not usually see people dropping a 5 soul unless they are feeling particularly desperate and they want to purge a suit from their hand to try and force a flush. It is possible for the player to my right to go for a situation like that. They're in the east seat, and even though the difference in points is significant, if they went for a high value hand like a full flush, that could give them what they need to get back into the game. I brush aside this possibility as serendipitous for me at best, and calling Richie would just make it harder for me. When my turn approaches, the game gives me a 4 Mon tile. It does not change the 4-6 soul weight, but it gives me significant pause. A 4 tile run like 4, 5, 6, 7 is very interesting because the likelihood of it turning into an additional shape is incredibly likely. In addition, 4, 5, 6, 7 is practically the best number sequence we could hope for with this hand. The tile acceptance is huge. In this instance, if we sacrifice our final 4-6 soul weight, we could literally draw any single Mon tile, and it would put us back into Tenpai. A 1 Mon would give us a weight for a pair on either the 4 or the 7. If we got a 2 Mon tile, it would be a closed weight on the 2 and 4 for the 3. If we got a 9 Mon, it would be a similar weight on the other side, a closed weight for the 8 Mon. If we got a 4 or 7, it would be a set weight for either the 1 Mon or the 4 or the 7, depending on what we draw. And what we are really banking on, if we get the 3, the 5, the 6, or the 8 Mon, we get an open weight, and then and only then this hand is not just in Tenpai but has Pinfu. After deliberating how I want to break up my weight in the soul tiles, I drop the 6 soul first. This is a relatively aggressive drop if the other players are paying attention, but as it's only enough to give them an inkling that my hand is progressing, I think it's fine to just straight up drop it. There is an argument where you could drop the 1 first, but I'm hedging my bets a little bit here because we could also draw a 3 soul, and that would also put us into Tenpai on a Pinfu weight. And then in 2 turns it happens. I get a 5 Mon, and I'm in Tenpai with a slightly more valuable hand. If I call Richie, I have a chance for a Mangan with an Ippatsu, a Sumo, or both. So we go back to the point totals here. I'm less than 1,000 points away from first place, and we are in the last round. In this situation, it's almost too easy. I have a valid Yaku, so there's no reason for me to call Riichi. So I drop the 1 soul, an innocuous looking terminal tile, and wait to see if anyone falls into my hand. Right after this, the player to my right drops the 3-mon, and I win the hand and the game. And this exact situation is the reason I was talking about prior when I said calling Riichi would just make things harder for me. Though my weight is a relatively strong open weight, if I call Riichi here, the right player almost certainly will have to reconsider their discard. They're the player with the most to lose here. In Gold Room South games, the difference between 3rd and 4th place is the difference between losing 10 points and 100 points on your rank. It's a very significant degree of punishment for 4th place. So a lot of level-headed players, when they see a Riichi in a situation like this, will simply turn tail and run. So if I were to call Riichi here, my prediction is that the right player gets spooked and heavily reconsiders their discard. If they have any of my discarded tiles, they will discard one of those because there's no way I can accept any of them by rule of Foodie 10. While it's still likely I win the hand eventually, if you are in a comfortable position like mine where any hand will win you the game and you have a valid Yaku, there's no reason to call Riichi whatsoever. That's why I think the answer to when should you call Riichi is largely just, it depends. Feel out the playstyles of the other players. But always look at points totals at the current round you're in and how many discards there are. There's always a chance to make your hand better, but the moment you call Riichi, that chance is over, so take it seriously. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching.